What's happening, everybody? On today's show, 6 games in the SEC this week. We're going to preview them all with our buddy Chris Marler, who joins us this time every week. We got Brock Bowers injured. We got Jimbo Fisher buyout talk again, and much more. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace Case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50 or more infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's Jase medical.com. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And join us as he does this time every week is our buddy Chris Marler from the Saturday football, the college football Saturday
so
football
close
uncensored podcast. Hey, I was close. What's going on, Marler?
Not much, man. Just sitting here wondering why I decided to be so arrogantly public with what I said about Liberty on a Tuesday night football game, and it being the lock of the year against Middle Tennessee State, because spoiler alert, it was not. So that's about it.
It's always funny to make wagers and hardcore bets on games that nobody even watched. So that's good. I mean, now that Hugh Freeze isn't at Liberty, there's no reason to watch. Although now that Hugh Freeze at Auburn, there's a little reason to watch, apparently, with the way they're playing. But let's dive into it, Marler. Big story coming out this week. One of the best players in all of college football, particularly the SEC, Brock Bowers. We find out he's going to have the tightrope surgery. Some saying, he should be back, somewhere towards the end of the season, should be back in time for SEC championship game, playoff, all that. Other people say, oh, he's done for the year. He's just done. But whatever. How big of a loss is this for Georgia? Granted, it's their best player, but right. Georgia's got other guys behind him.
Yeah, so I think it's hard to figure out like how big of a loss it is yet, because obviously like Georgia has done they've done a lot of good things on their offense and their game planning and like just the way they call plays and the way they distribute the football for a long time. It's just been like the blueprint, whether it was Bunkin or with Bobo. So it's not like it's just one dude. That being said, I mean, Brock Bowers had way more receptions and way more yards than anybody else in that roster the first 2 years. Was obviously doing that again this year. I mean, and he's possibly the best player in the country. He's the best player at his position in the country. Might be the greatest player at his position in the history of college football. Like, those aren't embellishments; those are real things. So on that side, it's a really big deal because you're losing a lot of production for sure. But like you said, there's guys behind him, and I think that like there are few units on that team that may be even more star-studded than that tight end group, because it's elite recruits. They're young, but they're really high-ranked recruits. Extremely talented, and they've got a little bit of experience too. So the one thing I think that is going to come into play for them that's really, really helpful is, one, the schedule gets a little tougher, but the defenses they're about to face aren't that great. And then two is the fact that like Bobo in this offense, they distribute the football to 8 or more receivers in every game this season, at every single game. In 5 of the 7, they've had at least 10 different players catch a pass. So like, they're not going to be completely dependent on one person to win games.
Yeah, it was just that Carson Beck, as he continues to develop, it was nice to have Brock Bowers as that safety net, I guess if you will. But I like what Reese Davis said. Reese Davis said this is actually more dangerous for Georgia because it allows them to take Oscar Dell, Lawson Lucky, one of these guys, develop them over the next few weeks. And then what if by the time we get to the SEC championship game, that dude has become a stud, and you get Brock Bowers back? Yeah, it makes Georgia that much more dangerous.
Well, the thing about I feel like I've had this argument 1,000 times on Twitter with Georgia fans about like, the 2021 season when Mechie and Williams go down in the second to last game of the year. That's very different than what happened with Georgia. But make no mistake about it. I mean, Georgia is already this year missing a ton of starters. That 2021 season, they were without George Pickens for most of the year. Now, like they lost a couple of guys early in the preseason, and it kind of became a benefit because then you were able to get guys like Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey and all these other people that you didn't think were going to be such a huge part of the offense on the field. And so by the time you get to December and you can roll out of George Pickens and have a seasoned vet that's still a freshman, I mean, it's like the rich get richer somehow.
One of our other storylines, by the way, Georgia on a bye week this week. Another team that has their bye week this week. It is Texas A&M, and Jimbo Fisher making some headlines as obviously they lose to Tennessee this past week, third loss already. I got to think they're going to be underdogs in road games at Ole Miss and at LSU here down the stretch of the season. And let's just say they take care of business in the other ones. 7-5, is that fireable for Jimbo Fisher? Some say yes, some say no. Bruce Feldman from The Athletic yesterday comes out with a report that says Texas A&M, I am told, will find the money to get rid of Jimbo if he can't get this thing going. That's great, but define get this thing going.
Yeah.
Like what is 7-5? Somebody told me 8-4 and he's safe. Well, okay, but 7-5 means you're firing him. I mean, Tom Herman went 7-5 at Texas and they moved on. I get it, but it's still what, $50 million the buyout? Like it's still a ton of money.
It's $76.8 million. And that's only if they fire him before January 1st. So if they fire him after January 1st, it's $67.8 million or something like that. So it's a ton of money, right? And like the thing with A&M is like they have no one to blame with themselves. Like you're the one that gave him that ridiculous contract in the first place, the 10 years for $75 million, and then went back and doubled down on it because he beat Bama by 3 points and then got a number 1 recruiting class. Like it was like a fleecing of all time. But that being said, like I would be shocked if they go 8-4. I would be shocked if he was let go from there. But it's also very weird, like you said, like the margin for error is like, okay, 8-4 is fine when you still have LSU and you still have Ole Miss, both on the road on that schedule. I don't understand the like they've lost 3 games. 2 of them are on the road. They were all the people, like teams that have been ranked. One of them's to Bama, one of them's Tennessee. Like it wasn't like they lost, like they didn't blow a game like that 2021 season they lost to Mississippi State. Like it's not like that. So I honestly kind of think, I hate to say it, that Jimbo's getting a little bit of unfair like heat on him right now after that game.
And he's got the ultimate trump card, Marler. He can always come back and go, guys, we lost our starting quarterback, Connor Wegman.
That's huge, though.
We lost by 1 score to Bama, 1 score to Tennessee. If I got Connor Wegman, maybe I win both those games. So that's where I think, like, again, barring you lose to Mississippi State or something that you have no business losing to. You go 6-6, yeah, I think he's done. But you go 7-5, and you say you lose by 1 score at Ole Miss and 1 score at LSU. I think you say, look, guys, we're close. We get Connor Wegman back next year. Yeah. The defense is churning. DJ Durkin's doing his thing. Like, let's run this thing back. Don't fire me. So I don't know. It could be a tough decision to be made in College Station.
Yeah. I think the one thing that is concerning, though, and I saw that like our good buddy Connor O'Gara threw this stat out there. Jimbo, outside of the like not including the COVID year, he's 3-14 in true road games in the last 17 games.
Wow. Well, that might be fireable. All right, one more thought in this segment. We only have 6 games to preview this week, so I figured we'd get this one out of the way. LSU is hosting Army. Kind of a weird midseason game. Army is 2-4 on the year. Not the old triple option that they used to run. Army looks a little bit different nowadays, but LSU 30-point favorite. I just wanted to touch on Jaden Daniels. The season he's having at LSU is probably the second greatest season for a quarterback outside of the Joe Burrow year. Absolutely ridiculous what he's doing. I mean, people were actually picking Auburn to upset LSU a week ago, and they go out and beat them 48-18. I mean, absolute demolishing.
Yeah, first and foremost, I was shocked to learn that people were actually picking Auburn. And so if you were one of those people, like lean in close and lend me your ear. You're an idiot. Like you're a dumb person if you thought that was going to happen. The thing I kept hearing too was like, the LSU defense is so bad. Like, do you think Auburn can pull the upset? And it was like, okay, well, here's the other side of that. The defense is bad, but Auburn's offense is even worse somehow. But no, the Jaden Daniels stuff, it'll be interesting to see how he does this weekend, because if he puts up 4 touchdowns, I'm definitely going to tweet that he and LSU hate the troops. That's a tough look. But at the same time, man, yeah, like it's the second best season, like right behind Burrow, which is possibly the greatest season in college football history from an individual, player. I am blown away by how good he's been. Like I knew he had a great season last year. I was not convinced he was going to like match that or let alone like surpass it by far. He's already got way more touchdown passes this year and like halfway through the season than he did in all of last year. He's just been great. He doesn't make mistakes. He glides on the field like he just seems like he is a step ahead or like a hair faster than every other person on the field. And what's really impressive is the fact that like his accuracy throwing the football has become so consistently like elite and lethal. That's what makes him like so impressive to me.
Yeah, and the fun thing, we'll get into Alabama, Tennessee a little bit later, but this week, Bama's got a huge game against Tennessee. It's a rivalry game, and then they get the bye week. LSU gets Army, and then the bye week. We heard this week, Brian Kelly said they're going to rest Mekhi Wingo. He's banged up. Let him get healthy with this in the bye week to get better for Alabama. So it's just it's weird, the different approaches. Like, Bama's going into the trenches full warfare with Tennessee, where LSU gets Army, ironically, a military reference, but they can kind of rest some people up this week and get healthy for the Bama game in 3 weeks.
I've been saying this for a couple of weeks because everyone kind of just threw out LSU as like a contender early on because they had those 2 losses early on. But I tell you what, man, like they are a really good football team despite the defense, and that can only improve. I have a feeling that they're going to ruin someone's season.
Yeah, and again, it's, you look at it, the Florida State game got away from in the fourth quarter. They didn't have Logan Diggs, who's been a stud running back ever since he's gotten in there. And the Ole Miss game, you get 1 defensive stop, you win that game, but albeit your record is what you are, but still a very dangerous team vying for the West. All right, Marler, we're going to get into some of the other games going on around the conference in just a second. But first, you are watching Locked On SEC, listening to Locked On SEC, more in just a sec. All right, we want to remind you guys this episode is presented to you by our friends over at the Jace Case. Like, today's episode brought to you by Jace Case. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now, and it's important for you guys to be prepared. There's tons of stuff going on, everything from natural disasters, earthquakes. Of course, we're coming out of hurricane season, all kinds of stuff to worry about. We'll have freeze warnings in effect very soon for a lot of parts of the country. And look, Jase Case wants to make sure or Jase Medical wants to make sure you are prepared. And that's why you need to take a look at the Jase Case. Any of these natural disasters can lead to supply chain shortages for medications or the inability to get medications in a timely manner. The Jase Case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. Jase Medical now offers customizable for your Jase Case with dozens of add-on medications. You choose the medications that fit you best and your family's unique needs. Jase is continually working to expand their medication offerings as well. In those recent efforts, they added ivermectin as an option in the Jase Case. You just go to jasemedical.com, enter the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That'll get you $20 off discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, at Jase Medical, JASE medical.com. Go check them out today. All right, we continue on here on Locked On SEC, and our buddy Chris Marler joining us as we continue to preview the week that will be in Week 8 in the SEC. And Marler, as we get into it, let's start with Mississippi State, Arkansas. Mississippi State coming off of a bye week, but they've been banged up, and still no real word yet on Jaquavius Marks or Woody Marks at running back or Will Rogers. They've both been banged up. Zach Arnett won't show his hand. He said, oh, yeah, we had some injuries, whatever. But, like, he won't say, are they playing this week? We won't know until the week rolls on. But Arkansas, actually a 6-point home favorite. I don't know how often the team is a 6-point home favorite that's lost how many games in a row now. But the one thing you got to tip your cap to, Sam Pittman and Arkansas, they're not quitting. They're putting up a fight. And they gave Bama just about all they could handle this past week in the second half.
Well, yeah, in like the last 16 minutes especially. Because, I mean, there's a lull there for, they didn't have a first down from like the 6-minute mark in the first quarter until there was 1 minute left in the third quarter. But like that is like the one thing that I would say that is very noticeable about Sam Pittman is like the passion he has for that job and that school. And it reminds me a lot of Coach O with LSU, just on a much more PG level. Because you can tell he just really cares about that university and that job and all that kind of stuff, and it shows in his work. Super impressed. Like the LSU game was the same way. They did not come out scared. They did not come out like they were, they at any point in that game, like you talk about quitting because they've lost 5 in a row. Specifically in that game, they could have quit and just rolled over and tip your cap to them. This game is going to be. I feel like it's going to be like watching like a dizzy bat home run derby. Like it's going to be entertaining, but it's going to be wobbly and some pretty awkward moments because the offenses they've been better. I'll say that.
Yeah, and I think part of that line just has to do with the questions on the health of Mississippi State. Like I think if Woody Marks and Will Rogers are 100%, I think they're looking in their locker room going, "We're a 6-point underdog to a 2-5 team. Like guys, come on, let's go. If we can't get this thing going, but." It's a big one on both sides. I mean, Mississippi State, if they want to get to 6-6 and get to a bowl game, this is a game you got to win. Beat a bad Arkansas team. If you're Arkansas, you look at it and go, guys, we've been losing, but we've been competitive. How many of these losses were by 1 score? Let's go. Let's get our crap together and let's win this one this week. But it'll be an early one, 11 a.m. Central on ESPN from Fayetteville. The line is 6. You got an early lean on where you're going?
No chance I would touch that game. No chance I would touch that game. There's just nothing around KJ Jefferson, and there's sometimes nothing around Will Rogers. I just they should just do an academic decathlon. Call it a day.
Speaking of not much around them, South Carolina, they're coming off another loss, 2-4 now. They're going to 6-1 Missouri with a monster road win at Kentucky last week, and they're back. They're in the top 25. They lose LSU. They drop out. They beat Kentucky. They're back in the top 25. But this will be the 3:30 Eastern game on the SEC Network. Missouri, a 7-point home favorite. South Carolina they should have beat Florida, to be honest with you. 10-point fourth quarter lead. You blow it. But, man, South Carolina's defense is just – it's not good. Spencer Rattler's balling out of this world. He's playing his butt off. But Missouri, man, they are playing really well this season, offensively and defensively.
I'll tell you what, going into the season, I knew they were going to be better than people expected, but better to me was going to be like 7 or 8 wins. It has been really, really impressive to watch what Drinkwitz has been able to do there. If you would have asked me before the season, like my whole thing about what was going to drive the success of this team was their defense, because they returned 8 or 9 starters from that team last year that was, better than people realized, because like Mizzou just will always fly under the radar, and people will not take them seriously until they have to, just because it's like low hanging fruit and like a joke, right? They're like the Gary Danielson of the SEC in terms of like belonging here. But that being said, like I love how Mizzou's played this season, the chip on their shoulder. Also, like you're talking about one stop and then a pick 6 away from possibly being undefeated. They had a 22-15 or 22-7 lead in that game against LSU. I was so impressed last week that go down 14-0 on the road in a game that you have not won in a decade in that building. Couldn't stop anything in the first 2 drives. And the fact that they were able to do all that and come back and go on a 35-7 run without Luther Burden being a factor, that was the most impressive part of the game.
Yeah, I just keep looking at it and going, man, South Carolina is a desperate team. I mean, they lose this one, they're 2-5. I mean, you are not bowl games out the picture, and honestly, even with a win this week, it might be hard to get. You get 3-4, it's hard to find 3 more wins on the schedule for South Carolina. But I think I'll lean Missouri at home, just because they've played so well and they can't mess up this week. But I feel bad for Spencer Rattler, man. He's doing his best back there with a bad offensive line, a bad defense, and he's putting the team on his back trying to do all he can do. But it's a tough one. The night game on ESPN, Marler, 6 Central. It will be number 13 Ole Miss at 3-3 Auburn. When I saw this line, I mean, Ole Miss is a 6.5-point road favorite. That's it. As bad as Auburn's been, I understand it's Jordan-Hare Stadium. I understand they get a lot of credit. They got up for Georgia and all that. But, man, there's only so much a stadium can do for you. Ole Miss, they got weapons everywhere.
I'm trying to find my notes in my paper notebook like a child, where I wrote all my Week 8 notes. Just how big of a difference Auburn has been, or how big of a difference being home has been to them as a team this year. They average I want to say 28 more points per game at home than they have on the road. I mean, they've looked bad on the road. They haven't been a great football team, but think about that performance when they went out to Cal and then at A&M and those and what happened at LSU. they have gotten blown out immediately. This game, like, I thought would have a little more juice to it because of the stuff in the offseason. I thought Auburn would be a little bit better than they are. All we know about Hugh Freeze coming into this job is that, he's born again. God willing, they're going to go out there and win as many games as possible. And he's a quarterback whisperer, a QB guru, and he has done nothing with the quarterbacks on that roster. And I'm not saying there's a lot that he could have done. I just don't see anything on that offense for 60 minutes that's going to be like an above average team, let alone Ole Miss, who's ranked 13th in the country and coming off a bye. So I think that this game, it'll be close early because Jordan Hare will be rocking and all that kind of stuff, and they'll be, trying to keep the team in it. But just Peyton Thorne is not going to get it done, and it's been really tough to watch.
Yeah, Ole Miss, they got their ground game going. Quinshon Judkins got healthy. Ulysses Bentley's been a nice compliment. Jordan Watkins is back. I don't know, man. Ole Miss is scoring 30 plus, so if they're doing that, can Auburn get to 30? Not with Peyton Thorne at quarterback. So I think they honestly, I think they should make the switch to Robbie Ashford. Just say, Robbie, let it fly. If you can't get it done, I've seen enough of Peyton Thorne. He stinks. Yeah, it's the dud of the transfer portal of the offseason. So
we're halfway through the season and we're still doing this weird. It doesn't even seemingly make sense the way they're rotating him anyway. I don't get it. I know Auburn fans are frustrated and they deserve it. So there's that.
All right, more with Chris Marler here in just a second. We'll touch on the game of the week, the third Saturday of October. Marler's already having a panic attack thinking about it. We'll get to that in just a sec. All right, but right now we want to remind you guys this episode is presented to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Look, passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors, they got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Go check them out today. eBay Motors. All right, as we dive back into it with our buddy Chris Marler from the Saturday Football Uncensored podcast, of course, part of the Saturday Down South Network. Marler, we've got the game of the week. It is Tennessee. It is Alabama. It is the third Saturday in October, and a rivalry that Alabama has dominated so much in recent years came crashing back down to earth last year as Tennessee was able to get over the hump. That field goal kick, I watched the replay. I still don't know how that ball gets in.
I was celebrating because I thought it was blocked and then it was out of the house that I was in. So
nice. I still don't know how it got in, but the goalposts come down. Tennessee celebrates. They smoke cigars. They get fined. They say, we don't care about the fine. All this talk. And now here we are, two teams that mirror each other a little bit, right? Maybe Tennessee's a little bit better at running the football as a team, but defensively, they're both strong. Bama, it looks like typical Bama defense. Mm-hmm. Tennessee, very much improved defensively this year. What are they, third in the country in sacks? But to me, Marlo, the story of the game is the two quarterbacks. Good, not great. Jalen Milrose looked fine. Milton's been okay. But, to me, this is the story, which quarterback's going to step up and play like a big boy this Saturday?
Yeah, I think Milroe, I don't know how you could look at these two quarterbacks and think that they look remotely similar, because there's not a lot of advantages, I think, or spots in this game that I think Bama has a huge advantage, but quarterback is one. Joe Milton's never thrown a touchdown pass in his entire 18-year career on the run. That is an actual fact. He has never thrown a touchdown pass while moving out of the pocket, unless maybe last week counted on that little rollout to the tight end. That was the first one. I don't think Joe Milton can beat Alabama or any good team by being consistent and efficient and not making mistakes for 60 minutes. Just like point blank period. I don't think he's good enough to do that. I definitely don't think he's good enough to go on the road to do that. We saw what happened in Florida, but it's not even just Florida. Like last week against A&M, several times they had a chance to put their foot on someone's throat, and he, I mean, bad interceptions, right? Now, all that's fine. And I was really looking forward to this game because in my mind in the offseason, you lost a ton of weapons on offense. And so that was going to take a step back, and it has. I did not realize that this Tennessee defense was going to be one of the best in the SEC, and they match up really well with Bama's weaknesses on offense because they get after the quarterback. They are constantly in the backfield, and Bama's offensive line has given up 30 sacks this season. I think it's 30 sacks. They have given up 4 sacks at least in their last 5 games or 6 games. It's the first time that's happened to a Power 5, I think, team in the SEC in like the last 20 years.
Wow.
At one point last week. Well, I mean, one player for Arkansas had 4 sacks. Like it was just, it's been bad all year, and I don't think that is going to necessarily change overnight going into this game. Whoever makes the least amount of mistakes at quarterback, I think, is probably going to win the game because even last week with that Arkansas game, man, like every single pass under like the last 3 minutes, you just feel like you're on the edge of your seat. Like what could possibly go wrong because something bad's going to happen. I like the fact that Bama's at home and it's a revenge game. 9.5 is way too many points. But yeah, I mean, I will say that like Tennessee fans better pray that they win this game because the assumption that they were going to just be better than Bama going into this year because of the last year was very, very premature.
I think FanDuel's already got the line down to 9, so some money may be coming in on Tennessee there. You said there is not that you don't think Milton and Milroe are very similar. How about their names? Similar, Milroe, Milton, only a couple of consonants different there. No, it is okay. I'm willing to hear you out and give the edge to Milroe in quarterback. Bama's run game hasn't been bad, but I think I would give the edge to Tennessee, right, with how they've run it with the 3-headed attack.
Tennessee is second in all of Power 5 teams in the country in rush yards per game. I mean, they have, and what they did last week against A&M was really, really impressive. I think the stuff that makes Tennessee such a good team this year is the stuff that no one is talking about. Like they run the football. Everyone assumes with Heupel's offense, they're just throwing the ball over the field. No, they are a run-first offense. And last week, what they did to A&M, I mean, just physically bullied A&M and went to the run game, especially late in the third and fourth quarter. I mean, like those are like A&M lost 3 starters during that game in the front 7. And that obviously didn't help. But, I mean, Tennessee lined up and said that we're going to run the football right at you, and this is the best thing that you do as a team. And A&M couldn't stop it. They couldn't stop it. And I just, I think that it's going to be super, super beneficial that this game's at home for Bama because if it was on the road, I think that 9 points should be with the other team. I feel like I've picked Bama to lose in half their games this year, and they've only done it once. And it'll be, I don't want to say fun. It'll be a panic attack for 4 hours, I'm sure, on Saturday. I do think this Tennessee team is really good in some places that Bama is not. And they're also a lot more complete than people think. Like, I mean, they won that game last week because they had a punt return for a touchdown.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, they've been getting contributions from all over the place. And it's funny, I saw the over-under is 49. Doesn't this feel like a 21-19 type game?
I just think it's wild that the total for the game is less than the points scored from both teams, like on their own.
Yeah, a year ago. Yeah, it's insane how different. But newsflash: Hendon Hooker and Bryce Young, they were both pretty good. They're both gone.
Yeah.
So, and Milroe, Milton, not up to snuff. So, okay, from an unbiased standpoint, you're saying, I mean, would you? Even if you're going to pick Bama to win, you would lean maybe Tennessee in the points, right? It's a lot.
1,000%. I really do. This game scares me from a logical standpoint when you're looking at because Ole Miss, I was worried that Bama would lose that game as a fan because how are they going to keep up with the points and how are they going to keep up the offensive style, like play calling, like it's similar to what Texas does with Sarkisian, and obviously that did not work out well. And they were also coming off that USF game, whatever. Going on the road at A&M, that's tough. I don't feel like being concerned about losing this game is coming from a place of irrational thought, as a fan, right? It is everywhere you look on Tennessee's team where they excel, is where Bama does not do well at all. Like Bama has not stopped the run that well this year. I think they're one of the worst teams in the SEC in allowing explosive run plays of 10 yards or more. And again, the defensive line is going to be in the backfield all day long. And I don't think Tommy Rees has done anything throughout this season to give you a lot of confidence that, like, if they're behind the chains early, they're going to be able to just convert and have success on offense. Because, like, I just feel like at some point you're going to see a blindside hit on Jalen where he fumbles or something, because they're going to hit him all day long.
Yeah, James Pierce having a fantastic year. Tyler Barron had a sack last week. I mean, the defensive front for Tennessee, who knew? Josh Heupel can win games without scoring 30 points. It's crazy, but that's how good Tennessee's defense is playing. It's a monster game, and Bama's got this test, and in 2 weeks they'll have that LSU test. And if they get past both of those, look, the one thing I'll say about Alabama, they're playing closer games than people expected this year, but when they need a play made, they're making it. Outside of the Texas game, Milroe made the plays against Ole Miss, made the plays against A&M, and then last week, with 5 minutes to go, they don't even give KJ Jefferson the ball back. They made the plays to keep the drive moving, keep the chains moving, eat up clock, and get out with the win.
Let me just say something real quick on that too, because I need to get it off my chest, or I'm going to freak out on my own over here. All of that is great, and you're right, and it feels good to hear as a admitted Bama fan. There's been 6 touchdowns they've had this year, 2 in the Texas game alone that came back because of penalties. They did it in like 3 or 4 straight games. They consistently do the dumbest stuff to shoot themselves in the foot. And I thought it couldn't get any worse, like with the pre-snap penalties. They had a pre-snap penalty on a play last week where they were just lining up in victory formation to take a knee. They couldn't even do that.
Yeah. Well, maybe Saban's just trying to shed the bandwagon fans. You know, like Dabo said, they're trying to do at Clemson. We're just trying to shed the bandwagon fans. We're about trying to find our true fans.
He's said some dumb stuff before, but that was, we should start losing so less people like us.
Yeah.
Dabo, listen, I just, spoiler alert, like, I don't know if less people can like you.
Yeah, I give him another year, and that might be at Clemson. NIL is going to send him to an early exit there over at Clemson. He is Chris Marler, of course, the Saturday Football Uncensored podcast for his weekly segment here with us. Marler, always good to catch up, man.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you soon.
All right, and with that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys so much for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out. We're back tomorrow on the show doing our full breakdown of Tennessee, Alabama with our Locked On insiders, so make sure you come back for that. Eric Kane and Luke Robinson. Going to be a lot of fun chatting up with those guys. Come on back on Locked On SEC tomorrow. I'm Chris Gordy. You guys have an awesome day. Talk to you tomorrow.